My wife always said I was too emotional for confrontation. So when I found out she'd been lying about her weekend yoga retreats, that they were actually trips with her high school ex, I didn't raise my voice. I just smiled. Waited. Then sent every receipt, text, and photo to the alumni committee that was considering her for an award. She called me screaming when they canceled the ceremony. I said, "Guess they don't like yoga that much after all." Hey Reddit. I've been a lurker here for years, but never thought I'd have a story worth posting. Turns out life had other plans. Let me tell you about how my quiet nature, my so-called too emotional side, helped me take down the woman I loved for 13 years, and how I did it without ever raising my voice. This happened in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm 41 now. Been married to my wife, Sherry, since I was 28. She was my college sweetheart. The kind of woman who could talk circles around anyone. Everyone loved her, smart, witty, beautiful, and always in control. She worked in public relations, which suited her. I'm more the behind-the-scenes type. I run a small tech support business from home. Fix people's software, rebuild old systems, keep things running. Boring stuff to most folks, but I like it. It's quiet. Sherry, on the other hand, lived for attention. She always teased me for being too emotional. I cried during movies. I got quiet when I was upset. I needed time to think before I responded. She'd throw her hands up and say, "God, you just shut down when things get real. Why can't you just confront stuff head on like an adult?" That line used to eat at me. I tried to change. Tried to toughen up, be more direct, more like her. But eventually I realized I wasn't broken. I was just different. I felt things. Deeply. But I didn't shout. I waited. And when I acted with purpose. So when I found out what she'd been doing, I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I smiled. And I waited. It started a year ago, right after Sherry turned 40. She said she wanted to reconnect with her body and mind, and signed up for a weekend yoga retreat in Door County. Seemed legit. She's always been into that earthy stuff, kombucha, crystals, long walks barefoot. I didn't question it. She sent pictures of sunrises over the lake, group poses, plant-based meals. But something felt off. The texts came less often. Calls were shorter. She stopped sharing little stories about her weekend. And when she got back, she seemed lighter. Happier. But distant. Then it became monthly. "The yoga retreats are healing me," she'd say. "I need this time for me." I wanted to support her. Hell, I was proud of her for taking care of herself. But my gut wouldn't shut up. It wasn't until one night, after a few glasses of wine, that she slipped up. She said something about Kyle. "You know, Kyle always said I should have done yoga back in high school. He was way ahead of the trend." She laughed. Kyle. Her high school boyfriend. The one she never really talked about, but whose name still lived in the background like old wallpaper. "Wait," I said. "Kyle? From back in Milwaukee?" She blinked. "Oh, I mean, yeah. I think he used to do yoga too. Just random." But her eyes darted. She talked too fast after that. Changed the subject. My stomach tightened. I'm not the jealous type. I'm really not. But after that, I started digging. Quietly. And what I found wrecked me. First, I checked her phone backups. She's not great with tech, and I handle our cloud accounts. She didn't realize her text messages were still syncing to an old iPad we kept in the guest room. I opened it. What I saw made my hands go numb. There weren't yoga retreats. Not a single one. Every single weekend trip was with Kyle. They'd rented cabins. Went to concerts. Spent entire Sundays in bed. There were selfies of them drinking wine in hotel robes. Inside jokes. Nudes. Talk of what their life could have been like. And worst, she told him she never stopped loving him. That I was sweet, but Too soft. That I wouldn't understand real passion. That she felt smothered by kindness. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat there, reading years of betrayal. But I didn't yell. Didn't confront her. Instead, I started copying everything. Screenshots. Bank statements. Emails. GPS records. Photos. I built a folder so airtight it could survive in space. And then I remembered something. Sherry had recently been nominated for a Community Achievement Award by her high school alumni committee. It was a big deal. Her high school in Milwaukee was one of those preppy private schools, and this award was for excellence in professional integrity and community leadership. There was a whole ceremony coming up. Donors. Speeches. Press. She'd been bragging about it for weeks. So I waited. The night before the ceremony, she was packing. "Can you believe it?" she asked, holding up her dress. "Me. Getting recognized. I bet Kyle will be there. He always shows up to these things." I smiled. "Oh, I believe it." She looked at me, suspicious. "You okay?" "Never better." That night, while she slept beside me, I sent the folder to the alumni committee chair. A woman named Susan who used to teach ethics at the school. I included a short note. "Dear Susan, I believe you should know who you are recognizing tomorrow. My wife is not the woman you think she is." Attached are records that show a pattern of dishonest and unethical behavior that directly contradicts the values of this award. That was all. The next day, she left early. Told me she'd be back Sunday. She never made it to the stage. Around noon, I got a call from her. She was screaming. "What did you do? What did you send them?" I kept my voice calm. "I sent them the truth." "You ruined me." They canceled the ceremony. I was on my way there and they called me and said, "Oh my God, I can't. Why would you do this?" I waited a second. Then said, "Guess they don't like yoga that much after all." I didn't hear from her the rest of that day. She didn't come home that night either. Which was fine by me. I spent the evening eating a frozen pizza and watching the Brewers lose to the Cubs. Every few minutes I'd glance at my phone, not because I wanted her to text, but because I knew she eventually would. Anger like that doesn't just fade. Not with people like Sherry. The next morning, she showed up. I heard her car door slam from inside the house. Heavy steps. Then the front door flung open and she marched in like she still owned the place. "What the hell did you do?" she snapped. I didn't even look at her right away. Just sipped my coffee, still in my pajamas. "I told the truth," I said again. "You humiliated me in front of the entire alumni board." They pulled me aside before I even got to the hotel and told me I was no longer welcome. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I stood up and walked to the kitchen sink, rinsing out my mug. "No. What you've done is cheat on me." Repeatedly. "And lie about it." She crossed her arms, nostrils flaring. "You always do this. You shut down and wait. Then act like you're the victim." I laughed a little. "Victim? No. I'm just finally being honest. Maybe for the first time in this marriage." She stormed down the hall and started yanking things out of drawers. "You think you're so clever," she said. "But you just showed everyone how bitter and petty you are." I followed her to the bedroom doorway and leaned against the frame. "You were going to stand on a stage and accept an award for community leadership, while sneaking off with your high school ex every month. And I'm the petty one?" She paused, hand clutching a sweater. "You're pathetic," she said. "Maybe. But I'm not a liar." She glared at me. "You know this is going to come back on you. Don't think you've won anything. You've just made things worse for yourself." I didn't respond. I just watched her pack her bag. Then she slammed the door and left. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd heard in years. She stopped calling. Didn't text. No emails. Nothing. But I knew that wasn't the end. Because people like Sherry don't just go quietly. A week later, the real fallout began. It started with a phone call from my bank. Mr. Landon? We noticed some unusual activity on your joint account. I froze. Sherry. I logged in and saw it, $4,700 gone. Transferred to a private checking account she'd opened months ago. Probably used it to pay for those weekends with Kyle. I called her. She actually answered. You stole from me. I said, calm but cold. It's our money. She snapped back. You want to play games? Fine. Two can play. I have proof you used those funds for an affair. She laughed. So what? Good luck proving intent. Everything's in both our names. You want to go to court? Let's do it. That was the first time I felt my hands shake. She was going to war now. And she wasn't bluffing. A week later I got served. She filed for divorce. But that wasn't all. She was demanding spousal support. Claimed I'd emotionally neglected her, said my extreme moodiness and inability to communicate had driven her away. I sat there reading the papers in my hands like they were written in another language. All I could think was, she really wants to destroy me. I didn't have much. Just my small business and the house we bought together. But she wanted half. And a monthly payment on top of that. Said she sacrificed her youth for me and deserved compensation. I got a lawyer. Told him everything. Gave him the file I'd sent the Alumni board. The texts, the photos, the timeline. He nodded slowly and said, You've got ammo. But this is going to get nasty. He was right. Sherry went nuclear. She started calling my clients. Told them I'd been unstable. Said I was shutting down my business. One of my oldest clients, a small dentist's office, emailed me and said they were pulling out. They didn't want to be involved in domestic drama. My business dropped 40% in a month. I couldn't prove it was her directly. But I knew. That's how she worked. Always behind the curtain, never leaving fingerprints. Then one night, I came home and found my garage door wide open. Inside, one of my work computers was gone. Just gone. No signs of forced entry. But Sherry still had a key. I filed a police report. Nothing came of it. And 2 days later, someone sent a nasty review to my business's Google page. Called me a thief and a fraud. Said I stole personal data. The profile had no name. Just a stock photo of a bird. I knew it was her. But again, no proof. She was bleeding me out piece by piece. Quietly. While still pretending to the world that she was the victim. I sat alone on my back porch one night, holding a beer, just staring at the trees. I felt like I was unraveling. Like every part of my life was being stripped down. That's when I realized something. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about survival. And I wasn't going to just sit here and let her burn my life down. If Sherry wanted to play dirty, then so be it. She might have started this mess with lies and stolen weekends, but now she was threatening my business, my future. She wanted a war. I was done being quiet. I started digging again. Not on her this time, but on Kyle. I found him easily enough. Still lived in Milwaukee. Ran some boutique auto detailing shop. Seemed clean on the surface, all smiling Instagram posts and sponsored ads. But when I started reading the reviews and checking court databases, the cracks showed. 2 small claim suits in the past 3 years, both women. One claimed he took money for a service and never showed up. Another said he crossed lines during an after-hours visit. That was all I needed to start. I drove to Milwaukee on a Thursday morning. Just walked into his shop like any other customer. He didn't recognize me at first. Hey man, can I help you? I nodded. You're Kyle, right? He gave me that smirk. The same one I'd seen in all those pictures on Sherry's phone. Yeah. That's me. I stepped in close. I'm Sherry's husband. The smirk disappeared. He looked like he might bolt or throw a punch. I kept my hands in my pockets. Calm. Steady. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then, look, man, whatever this is, it's not what you think. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the pictures. One with his hand on her leg, date and time stamped. Lake Geneva. The same weekend she told me she was doing a silent meditation retreat. He went pale. You should really stop talking to her, I said. Because she's dragging you down with her. And I've got a lawyer who's real interested in where the money came from for those weekend cabins. I didn't know she was still married, he mumbled. Liar, I said. But it doesn't matter now. If she contacts you again, you tell her this. If she keeps trying to ruin my life, I will make sure every client, investor, and reviewer you've ever had sees exactly what kind of man you are. His face tightened. That's blackmail. No. It's a promise. And then I left. 2 days later, I got a call from my lawyer. Something changed, he said. Her lawyer reached out. She wants to settle. I didn't say anything. Just stared at the wall for a second. She's willing to drop the spousal support demand. And she's backing off her claim to your business assets. She just wants the house. I let that sit for a moment. She was retreating. Kyle must have said something. Maybe he got scared. Maybe she realized I wasn't bluffing. I told my lawyer, let her have the house. I'm done living in that place anyway. But it wasn't over yet. A week later, I got an anonymous email. Just one line. You really think Kyle was the only one? And an attached photo. Sherry. Different man. Different city. Different lie. That email stopped me cold. I stared at the screen for a full minute before opening the photo. I already knew what I'd see. But it still knocked the air out of me. It was Sherry. Sitting at a dinner table with some man I'd never seen. Holding his hand across the table. Candlelight. Wine. Her hair down in that way she only did when she wanted to feel sexy. The timestamp? 6 months before the first yoga retreat. Right then I understood something that felt like a punch to the throat. Kyle wasn't the start. He was just the one I caught. This whole thing, her needing space, the retreats, the distance in our marriage, had started long before that. I'd spent so long blaming her for Kyle that I missed the real story. She'd been checked out for years. Kyle was just one of the exits she took after deciding to leave me emotionally but not financially. It was never about one mistake. It was about who she was now. And maybe who she always had been. I didn't reply to the email. Didn't forward it. I just saved the photo in the same folder where everything else lived. I wasn't going to use it. Not anymore. Because I didn't need to fight her anymore. I'd already won. The divorce finalized 4 weeks later. She got the house. I kept my business, what was left of it. I moved into a small rental on the edge of town. A place with ugly carpets but good quiet. No memories. She didn't show up in person for the signing. Did it all through her lawyer. That was fine with me. On the last page, where I had to write my signature next to hers, I paused. Stared at that name I used to whisper every night. Then I signed. And just like that, 13 years were over. You might think the revenge was the award cancellation. Or the money. Or confronting Kyle. But that's not the part one remember most. The part one remember, the part that makes me sleep at night, is this: 6 months after the divorce, I got a message from Susan, the woman who ran the Alumni board. She told me Sherry had tried to apply for a different award. Some community business leadership thing through another group. Susan had shared my folder with a few people in that circle. She said, "Don't worry. That kind of reputation sticks." Sherry was out. Again. Not because I screamed. Not because I fought. Because I was patient. And because the truth, once it's out, spreads like wildfire. I'm not proud of everything. I let things fester. I didn't speak up early enough. Maybe if I had, we could have ended it quietly. With less pain. But I'm not sorry either. Because sometimes the only way to deal with a liar who's good at playing the victim is to let them destroy themselves with their own lies. One receipt at a time.